Hey everyone, it's Sam the Reclaimer developer, and today I thought I would do something a little bit different. One thing I've always wanted to do on my channel is interview people who I think are just interesting people to talk to. Maybe they're in the game dev industry, or maybe we just have games in common, like we just have similar interests, and we just have conversations. So the channel doesn't have to always just be nonstop about tech related things. And I wanted to just have an opportunity to give an audience to people who that I think are interesting to have interesting conversations with. And I feel like this is a good time to do this now because I'm still sort of in between development progress, I would say, with Reclaimer. Because while development is slowly ramping up again, one thing I've really been wanting to do, something I said that I would do for a long time, is get the website up and running. So that is actively in progress right now and should be finished soon. It's coming together just fine, but that'll be released when it's released. And I just want to get that done before moving on to the next phase of the game's development, because it's just something I said I would do and I just want to get it done. But in the meantime, I just wanted to present this to you. This is a talk that I had with a really good friend of mine. We've known each other for like 15 years, since high school, and we've always had video games in common, and he's had a lot of really good opinions about games, and we just vibe on a lot of things. And he goes by the YouTube channel Hygge State, and I will put his information down in the description box below. But please check out his channel. And if you're not already, please go give him a subscribe, because he does a lot of commentary, not just on games, but he's right now doing a travel vlog. And he's one of the most creative people, talented people, and funniest people I've ever met. So I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as we did, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, so I'm here with Hygge State. I hope I pronounced that right.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So I guess before we take go into whatever it is we're going to talk about, because I have no idea, but why don't you take a minute and just kind of like introduce like kind of what you do, what you're about, and just kind of like what you got going on with your channel.
I just kind of hang out mostly. I make trivial observations and kind of go,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's about it. I do travel stuff now. I
Mm-hmm.
guess that's what I'm working on. I kind of stumbled into it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's pretty much it. I mean, it's a pretty chill channel, I hope.
Mm-hmm.
I recently rebooted it after so I did an initial reboot at the beginning of spring. And I was like, no, I had a revelation, so I rebooted it only a few weeks later, and I only have just about one video up. But I'm trying to avoid some traps that I see other channels fall into. Like really cynical stuff, like screaming, shouting, engagement, like having the algorithm inform like how it is I talk, how it is I title things.
Uh-huh.
That's pretty much it.
I hear you. So, like, I did forget to mention this, but you and we've known each other for how long?
Mm,
Since,
15 years.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I feel like the thing that connects us is video games.
Hmm.
Probably, there was that night we played Shadow of the Colossus
And
guitar.
Connor ate the dog bone, remember?
Yes, I don't think it was that late in the night to start doing like loopy
No, it was
stuff,
like
but
6.
And he just started eating stuff out of like dog treats. And he
Yeah.
was like, I was bored and it looked good. I'm just like, more power
That's
to you,
exactly
man.
what he said. Like dad saw him doing it and he's like, all right.
uh, that was probably I describe it as like core memories, not that particular moment watching somebody eat dog food, but just that night in general of just playing the video games.
Connor was also the first person in our group of friends to get a Wii. So a different night he had Pokemon Battle Revolution and we were playing that as well.
Yeah, I think wasn't that one that you could like connect your DS to or something like
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Diamond and Pearl, yeah.
I cannot like I only recently last year beat Pokemon Yellow. I have been trying since it came out to beat it, and I finally beat it. Um, and yeah, I can't. I am so behind on like all the different Pokemon. My wife is the one who's the Pokemon expert. She was in the Pokemon League.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, her brother is a national champion. I think I could have
Sorry, I
that
was
wrong.
slamming down a LaCroix.
It's okay.
Yeah.
My drink of choice is an Arctic cocktail, and how you make it is you take a glass of water and then you add some ice.
There you go. Ritzy.
I've been working on the project that I'm working on. That's this channel is revolved around is kind of like I hesitate to say like it's a lot. It's very like nostalgic. It's like if you could bottle that nostalgic feeling of like when games were complete products, you could take a console over to somebody's house and sort of like those nights we had in high school where we would be playing split screen all night or watching each other play really intense stories like that one night in James's basement where we played BioShock all night.
Yeah. On the floor.
Yeah,
On his
and
James was the rich friend, so he had a very, very nice house. So we were playing BioShock on the floor of a wine cellar.
I mean that was still really fun, and that was the first time I'd ever seen BioShock, and I will say it's like the sequence of like seeing Rapture for the first time, and then the contrast of like, wow, this city at the bottom of the ocean is absolutely incredible, and then you see its state of ruin when the bathysphere rises up, and then the splicer comes in and kills that guy and tries to get into the ship. That was probably one of the like my favorite moments in all of gaming, and I had seen it for the first time.
Yeah, I've recently played through that sequence today just to kill some time. So yeah.
That a couple years ago, I got the PhD achievement where you photograph. It's like you research everything that can possibly be researched to its maximum. And then I beat the final boss with nothing but the wrench. I didn't even use
Hell yeah.
plasmids. It was just beat.
I was gunning for that because I own both versions, the original 360 version and the remake.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of out of like posterity. I want to see the differences. And anyway, I was gunning for it on the remake just because there are some niceties that come with it being like a more modern port of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And just absolutely everything is bugged with that game, and a lot of achievements that I should have gotten. So I did do that. I met the criteria to do that. I researched absolutely everything, and none of the trophies popped for like each enemy as I got 100% completion. So
There have been so many ports of like old titles today, and the claim is like it's exactly the same experience as you had like when it came out 10, 12, 15 years ago, just on modern hardware with updated graphics. And that's in the most cases a blatant lie.
Mm-hmm.
A good example of that is Halo 2 on the Master Chief Collection. I think Halo 3 as well, because they're like, we didn't change anything, we just added it to the MCC. And it's like they had new bugs that were never introduced in the original title. And also, did you see that that footage of the Last of Us PC port?
With the eyebrows?
It's like the eyebrows and the hair and everything.
Yeah, a lot of it I do, and I know you're not doing this, but I guess because it's online and talking about things with nuance online sucks before you hear somebody typing it up. But a lot of that I do have sympathies for, like, people working on the things that, like, they're just not given the resources, and that's usually down to some management, or like they need to make a date.
Mm-hmm.
Like especially this last Pokemon game, that was awful. I did not purchase it, but things like that, it's like it sucks to work on something and care about it, and then realize you're not going to make it, and then it also sucks to. I'm assuming I'm not in game dev, but I'm sure it also sucks to know that, like, you're sending something out that's unfinished and people have bought something that will be fixed in like 12 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, software in general, like, I feel that games are software, right? They're programs basically.
Sure.
But it's not just a state of games, it's a software development industry as a whole. But it's like game development is like the canary in the coal mine. You can see what's coming based on like what's going on in like the game sphere, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's one of those things that scream the absolute loudest, because people aren't getting hyped about the latest version of Microsoft Word or Adobe PDF reader or whatever. They're getting excited about the latest gen titles. Mm-hmm. With is it going to have good graphics? Is it going to have a good story? Is the gameplay going to be solid? And a lot of games today, even by ones made by AAA studios, are blatant rug pulls, where they advertise one thing and they deliver another. And what they do is they deliver promises, but it's not really a promise that they had you agree to, if that makes sense. They weren't outright, buy this now and we will make it better. It's like, we're gonna say this game is hot shit. We're gonna release it in its broken state. We're gonna wait until people bleed about it, and then we're gonna be like, have Chat GPT type up a response that's like, we're very sorry.
We're gonna save the JPEG. We're gonna post it to Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The CEO petting the seals. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's definitely true. Where it's again, I'm not in game dev, so I can only armchair this, but it's it's really, so like, we're picking apart like on the corporate side, but it's also really upsetting to see consumers adopt that kind of language and that kind of justification, where they'll buy something and it is rough, like maybe it's a Nintendo game or whatever.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a bad example. There's a lot of ills that I can talk about with Nintendo, but they do make tidy games when they're out. But maybe there's the Ubisoft game, and it's a little rough, and like, the consumers have adopted the talking points from the corporations, like, oh, it'll be better down the road, or like they're making justifications, and it's really, like, I guess, to repeat myself, upsetting to see people, one, be treated like that, and then two, talk like that, almost as engineered. Yeah,
they're buying into propaganda almost.
Yeah, and it's in this example, it's video games, but I see that behavior expressed elsewhere in people's lives. Like, I don't know, quality of food or how they're treated elsewhere in this nation of ours. It's like, oh yeah, like it's like an appeal to religion, like, it's a little expression of living in a corporatocracy, like it's really upsetting. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
my medicines are this much, but I have good insurance, assuming that I'm not going to lose my job, things like that.
And that's one reason why game companies or companies in general just keep getting away with it, is because there's enough people who are just comfortable enough to not do anything about it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like I kind of I think I could be wrong using this as an analogy, but I think the really good one is you saw like the recent Reddit the Reddit going dark.
I'm not as plugged into the web as you are, so
Hmm.
I'm gonna give you my play-by-play of what I think is happening. There's some sort of infrastructural change because they're avoiding paying some sort of license or something like that,
Hmm.
and then that's made for a terrible user experience that feeds into like metadata for other people's works that they built up around that.
Well, that's mostly right. Basically,
Okay.
what it is their API changes. So,
Okay.
and this is true for most companies. If you create a software package or a website or something, and you have a way to make plugins or third party apps, most of the time, those third party applications are better than what the actual company puts out.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like, for example, Visual Studio, Microsoft's flagship IDE, is absolute garbage. It's been absolute garbage since they completely gutted it and rewrote it. I think it was soon after the days of XP were over, probably with the advent of like Windows 7, I think.
Hmm.
And ever since then, it's been an absolute house of cards, and it's never had something called fuzzy finding,
What's that?
which so fuzzy finding is where it indexes all of your files, and I can just do a keystroke to bring up a search box, and it's like, I don't know, I can go straight to a file just by typing it
Hmm.
and go straight there, and it'll bring up, like, as I'm typing. I mean, you've seen this on websites, you've seen it in other places, but it's just like, as you're
That's the thing
typing.
that doesn't work on Dropbox because I remember naming my files certain things and I tried to do that in Dropbox and it doesn't work.
It's not, it's hard to get it working properly. Well,
Okay.
okay, let me rephrase that. It is not hard. Like, if you just did like a basic loop of all the files that were in a solution, you could narrow them down very fast. But it basically narrows down the file as you type it until you hit the one that you want. Well,
Hmm.
Visual Studio does not come with that out of the box. It's a third party plugin that you have to pay money for. And what's
Hmm.
crazy is their text editor, Visual Studio Code or VS Code, which is what I primarily develop on just because I like the keyboard shortcuts. They're
Hmm.
sensible to me, but it has fuzzy finding built in, and Visual Studio does not. But point being is sometimes what makes a product worth it is the community effort to make it better.
Hmm.
So Reddit's third-party applications. I think one was Apollo. On my phone, I've got one called Reddit is Fun. And so what Reddit did was they imposed something called a fuck you fee. And what a fuck you fee is basically, let's say I don't want to do a job for you,
Okay.
but I don't outright want to tell you I don't want to do a job for you, because you might tell someone, hey, Sam told me he didn't want to work with me anymore. You might tell other people, and now I got a bad reputation. So instead, what I do is I quote you. I will do the job, but let's say normally it'd be $100. I charge you $10,000 for it.
Hmm.
I'll do it for you for $10,000. You would say you're out of your fucking mind. I'm not going to do that.
Gotcha.
So, and that's called a fuck you fee. And so Reddit did a fuck you fee to all of their people who like to integrate with them.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so they made their API fees astronomical. So I think instead of like, I think the yearly cost for Apollo, or I could be butchering this, I think I can't remember what unit of measurement it is. It could be monthly. So let's say API access went from like $120 to $40,000, and like it was absolute insanity. And so what Reddit did was they were like, we are going to do a protest where like 80% of all the subreddits, which is non-trivial number, that's a very big number for that website, because the power is in Reddit is the community, and it's all community managed. The mods aren't paid, they just do what they do. And so they're like, we are going to go dark for 48 hours. And
Okay.
do you see the problem with that statement?
Yeah. Yeah.
They gave Reddit a timeline. They say, okay, they are gonna the community is gonna be bleeding for like 48 hours. We're gonna grit and bear, and in 48 hours everything's gonna be back to normal. Well, and they actually started making headway with it, because when all of those subreddits went dark at once, their servers started crashing. It was like something about I guess the front pages with so many different subreddits being subscribed to, like some things they didn't account for just started happening. So they actually did something. They were showing us, or they were showing Reddit. They're like, we will keep, like, we can mess you guys up if we just all walk away.
I'm on Reddit right now, and the only thing that I'm seeing is ads for Adobe and Final Fantasy 14.
Well, the blackout's over.
Okay.
It's over. And so that's the problem, is they were like, 48 hours is the maximum amount of uncomfortable we are willing to make ourselves. We cannot live without our cat pictures and our memes for more than 48 hours. And so, like, and like, this may be a grotesque example, but if I tell you I'm going on a hunger strike,
Uh-huh.
one of two things is going to happen. You're going to concede, or I'm going to die. Like, that's what it means to, like, make yourself uncomfortable and tell people, like, hey, I don't like what you're doing. And so I know that was a bit of like a side tangent, but there's a lot of people who are putting up with products and being like, I'm really angry. Well, what are you going to do about it? I'm going to buy the next version when it comes out. That's just how angry I
Like,
am.
I feel like it's Apple users. As somebody using an Apple device right now, I feel like that's Apple users.
Are you on an iPhone?
Yeah.
My condolences.
I like anything that's like mobile or handheld or whatever, it's fine. But anything beyond that, I'm like, man, no, that's too much. That's too much money.
Yeah, I thought they were pretty decent back in the day, especially when they were still on Intel. But with the advent of the M1, so like the M1 is like the new chip that's in like all the Apple devices.
That's the Wumbo one, yeah.
Yeah, the big one. And there was a guy I followed on YouTube. He did a lot of stuff with Photoshop and Adobe Premiere, and he was using a Mac Mini that was, I think, just shy of a decade old. And so it had Intel on it. So it had an Intel chipset. He had a brand new MacBook with an M1 on it, and the older one ran the newest version of Photoshop slower than the one that was 10 years old. So, I mean, it's anecdotal, but I'm just like, that makes sense as a modern machine.
Yeah, have you seen the M1 Ultra?
I have not. I do not pay any attention to what Apple is doing whatsoever.
It's really, really funny because they have just put two M1 chips together and taped them up.
What's it called?
M1 Ultra.
M1 Ultra. I
Yeah.
gotta. I haven't heard of that.
It is legitimately because there's symmetry there, so it's just two M1 chips pushed together.
I can't stand Apple. Uh, I can't do two things at once here. Let me. So I'm looking up the. Yeah, the world's most powerful chip. I doubt. Yeah, I'm not buying it.
In every capacity.
I mean, it's like some of these stats, like, oh, it's the most powerful chip. They could be saying a half truth. Like, it
Yeah.
could have as many transistors, or it could have the most amount of transistors as any chip on the market right now for this. That's at the same, spec.
Hmm.
But does that mean it's better? It's like not necessarily.
Right. There's definitely a lot of caveat. They just want their words, their fancy words to put on put on boxes, put on
Mm-hmm.
screens. Yeah.
So here's a random question.
Sure, go for it.
What is your earliest memory with video games of any kind?
It was in school in town.
Mm-hmm.
I guess this is my most prominent memory. I'm sure I've played video games earlier than that, but I guess the memory that I have that is like, oh, where it connected was being on an Apple II in elementary
Oh
school, like
man.
in kindergarten. And that sounds rad. We're not that old, but
Mm-hmm.
the school was just poor, so they had Apple IIs for the first few years I was in elementary school, and I remember playing Number Munchers and all of that, and getting the discs, booting it up, everything. I remember all that.
That is wonderful. I didn't see an Apple II until I was in high school, and someone I can't remember his name. He went by Smiley, but he was in my IT class, and he brought in an Apple II, and we played games. It had a floppy drive on it back when like floppy meant like floppy, like a flop around.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it had its external hard drive was 10 MB, and it was as big as a printer. And he actually plugged it in, and it caught fire because there was a
It's
cobweb
beautiful.
inside of the like. It didn't like burn up, but like the cobweb caught fire and just poof, like smoke came out.
That's
Um,
rad.
uh, but mine, it's hard to say. Like, I think I may have been in like preschool or something, and there was some like Disney learning game or something on a computer. Um, I wasn't. It wasn't really my thing back then. Because I guess I just like tangible things a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And preschool is like hella young to do tech stuff, but like I think I remember. Um, I can't remember which one came first. It was either the NES or the N64. Um, but it's like the days of like blowing the cartridge to get it to work. Um, that was probably my first, and I remember seeing demos for like the Ocarina of Time and Banjo Kazooie, like when we went to either like Toys R Us or Walmart or something. Um, and that was like back in the day when you would like wake up on Christmas morning and you would have a physical box in your hand with a physical like cartridge inside of it. And it's like you pulled it out of the box and like shoved it into the console, you boot it up, and you have like no idea what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like nowadays, um, like the disc is basically an activation code or like a
Yeah.
link to download the actual game.
I'm of two minds of that, where it's like, one, I think it's important that we have like concrete copies of these things. Um, but two, it's just so wasteful. It's so incredibly wasteful, and like even like in your home, like it just takes up so much space. So like the caveat is I don't trust these publishers to like use digital licenses ethically. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not ignorant to that, but at the same time, I do I do chuckle to myself in some capacities that people are so like, the situation, you know what's going on. You just said that, it's just an activation code and then it kicks off the download.
Mm-hmm.
But people are very precious about getting their physical copies without thinking if it like what that means anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I can totally see that because, like, one, there's something very satisfying about having, like, my own library of video games. Like, back in the day, there was probably, like, a shelf with all these cartridges on it, or, a rack with, like, in the days of, I think, PS1 and Dreamcast, where you would have the boxes were or the CD cases were like the same size as like a music album, so they could
Yeah, the
like
jewel case. Yeah.
yeah, they could all be like on the same like if you have like those CD racks, they could all be on them, or you could have like a sleeve.
You can have the spool. Did you have the
Yeah,
friend with the spool?
I was the friend with a spool. I would like I stored the cases, like I kept them in a safe place, but I had a sleeve with all my like a it was like a binder with all my games in it, with all my Dreamcast games. And it's probably somewhere. I still have my Dreamcast. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I think you can, like, hack it to make it read from an SD card, like,
Oh yeah.
thing.
Oh
And
yeah.
I think I may. I'm not doing anything else with it, so I may just do that. Um,
I recently, like, to that point, I recently refurbished my Game Boy Color. Um and that was pretty easy. I haven't put any mods in it. I just wanted to keep it as it is, but
mhm.
that was fun.
Yeah, I don't know where any of my Game Boys are. Like, I mean, like, most of what I do is emulated nowadays. But even in the days of like when you had like physical cartridges and stuff, even like stuff on disc, like in the days of the PS3 and the 360, the game was a complete product on
Hmm.
the disc. Like it would be like DVDs. I think the max capacity was like 4 gigabytes. You get to Blu-ray, basically double that. Um,
In the middle of that, though, there was a change where, like, the digital market was being legitimized, like smaller titles, and then publishers got it in their head that, like, oh, we can at a later point in time. It always starts benevolently, right? It always starts benevolently. Like, how cool is it? Like, if 2 years up the road, you find like a critical failure that wasn't found in development. Well, we
mhm.
can patch it up. Awesome. That should be a very optimistic place that we're in. But then, it's since turned into the situation where we're describing now, where where it's like, oh, we can sell you this game many times over.
Well, it's a promise.
Yeah, yeah.
What you're doing is you're not buying a product. You're buying a promise that eventually you will get the product that you bought.
Hmm.
And here's another thing, like going back to like the thing that I don't think like our children are going to get to experience is the
Snow,
concept of like do what?
snow.
Well, I mean, if the world keeps going the way it is, maybe, um, but I was thinking of like they would open a present with a game in it, and then
Uh-huh.
just start playing it. It's like instead, like if I gave them a
Give
disc,
them a receipt with the code.
well, it's like shopping for a game is essentially like I have to download it for them if they want to play it. If I give them the disc, they're like, "Oh, I'm excited! I got this new game." They pop it into the Xbox, and it's like, "Okay, now wait 12 hours while it downloads before you can play with your present." So it's
if
like
you're in the position where you're in the internet, you're not on vacation on the side of a hill somewhere enjoying family and
and what if
or stationed overseas or whatever.
what if they don't have internet? It's like
or consistent internet where it keeps dropping the signal and you have to start over again.
Well, I mean, like nowadays, files can be downloaded, where they left off if they're interrupted. Like with distributed. I mean, I don't know. I'm not really an internet guy either, but so I'm not really sure how it works. But I know that it's like they at least get to pick up where it left off if the connection's interrupted. It's like, but I do remember how it was like back in the day if you're just like on fucking dial-up and the connection gets interrupted at like 99%.
Yeah.
Just but it's like, but at least back in those days, like if I got a Dreamcast game, my Dreamcast was never connected to the internet. It's like, but I could pop in a disc on Christmas morning at my grandfather's who didn't have internet at all.
Yeah, I remember that house, yeah.
Yeah, and I could play the game, and I could play it to completion. But nowadays, you can't do that. It's like an internet connection's imperative because like Halo 5 was 90 gigabytes.
Yeah, I downloaded it, yeah.
When I got my TV a couple years ago, like I got it back to my house. I hung it up on my entertainment center, and I'm just sitting there, just like wringing my hands a little bit, thinking about what to do next. I'm like, I'm going back to the store and getting an Xbox. So I got an Xbox, and I got the base model, which was like 1 terabyte, and I was like, 1 terabyte's a non-trivial amount of storage space. That'll probably be enough. And then I got Halo 5. It took up a tenth of the hard drive space. They make terabyte drives seem laughably small. And even like, have you seen the Gollum game?
Yeah, I think that's rad though. I think that's super rad. Like it's super cynical. Like it's not a good game, but I think it's like that it exists, and there's more down the pipe. Like
it was like it's a 50 gigabyte game, and there's hardly any content to it.
I didn't know it was 50 gigs. It looks like it was like 12.
Yeah, it's a 50 gigabyte game. And
did they just save absolutely every texture at like 4K or beyond or something like that?
So I think it's a byproduct. Like I don't know for sure, and it's like one reason why I'm not messing with game engines for the stuff that I'm working on, because I know like every line of code that went into the game that I'm working on, I wrote.
Right.
I know exactly.
You clean up after yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And if something is not useful, I don't keep it in there. Well, I can't say for sure what's going on in the back end of the Unreal Engine because I don't use it. But it's like it's probably just abstractions of abstractions of abstractions of
right.
on and on and on and on and on. And so you just have all of this waffle that is just being compressed together and wadded up and taped together and then yeeted out to production. And it's like, so like the big question to ask yourself is like, I mean, like as a developer, the program is behaving weird. Did you intend for it to do that, or didn't you? Did you intend for it to be a 50 gigabyte game, or did you not? you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's like the story.
I'm still just reeling at the fact that game is 50 gigs and
it's
how
like,
unoptimized that is. Yeah.
It's just like asking them, do you know why it is 50 gigabytes? And they probably can't give you a straightforward answer because they don't know.
It's like Victorian bread that's cut with sawdust.
Stretch it a little bit.
Yeah.
It has no substance, but you won't be hungry anymore.
Yeah. It ain't Lambus. My goodness. Yeah, did you see the trailer for the I forget, but it takes place in Moria. I don't know if it's the same studio, but it's crazy that they announced a game. It looks just about the same.
I haven't seen it. I wasn't aware that there was another one. I thought they had learned their lesson with the first one.
It released a week, well, at the time of that trailer release, it released a week before, so it's like you wouldn't be insane to assume like, oh, if there's another one, it's going to come out in a couple of years.
Let me see if I can find that. Let me open up a guest window here. And I would love to look that up.
It's so funny too because you can tell that they're licensed out by WB and they have like access to like a sound library, so like little snippets of dialogue. Like I'm so familiar with those movies that I can tell like where they're nipping them from. Like it's not original recordings. It's crazy.
Like from the movies.
From the movies, like hammer blows and little phrases. It's insane.
The Lord of the Rings Return to Moria. Let me see.
Ooh, streaming.
Let's see. You see that?
Oh yeah.
Let's see. Okay, yeah, so powered by Unreal Engine. I'm going to...
More than what hobbits and elves.
You can tell.
It is time we told it ourselves.
It does look very similar.
Hammer and axe we mine and scout. Across
I have no idea if it's the same studio.
delving for riches. Yet the greatest treasure remains out of our
Let me look up
reach.
free range games.
Warrior.
Okay, so it's kind of like a... It looks like it's... You craft stuff and you delve.
You craft stuff in the mine, yeah.
Okay, I couldn't tell what they were going with. Like, if it was like real-time strategy or tower defense or what.
I think it might be that, but I think you might have more agency like in a 3D environment. Like I think you can walk around and do all that.
Mm-hmm. Free range games. Let's see. Gollum game. Gollum game. Let's see. Publisher.
4 out of 10's awful high idea.
Yeah, I don't think it's... Yeah, it's not made by the same people. Doesn't look like it. But yeah, the game is 50 gigabytes large, and so the big one for me, like as far as like the biggest like things that there's no excuse for, is things like frame drops, screen tearing, graphics related stuff.
Mm-hmm.
In 2023, there's absolutely no excuse for stuff like that to be happening. Like, computers are so powerful compared to how they were, like, back in, like, you know, you blink and, you know, computers evolve so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And they they are so much more powerful to what they used to be, like back in the days of, you know, the Xbox, the PlayStation 2, Sega Dreamcast, Nintendo 64, what have you. But like games today, it's like computers as powerful as they are choking on the requirements just to run these games stable. Like I think this one is like the minimum requirements is something like 8 or 16 gigabytes of RAM just to run it stable.
Is that a lot? I don't have a frame of reference.
Okay, so yeah, it's a lot.
Okay.
Like I think you need like 4 gigs of like dedicated memory, and it's like a lot of like really base entry computers come with like 4 gigabytes of memory. That's like very base entry level. most computers are 64-bit nowadays.
Okay.
So, and which is, it's just a trait that they would also have 4 gigabytes of RAM, but they're like, you need 4 gigs just to be able to run your operating system and this at the same time. And so like the thing that I keep coming back to is like, why? For what?
All those animations that you can buy as DLC.
Is that a thing for this one?
Yeah.
Oh, the
if you want
emote.
them to, if you want them to say "my precious," that's money.
What?
Yeah.
That isn't a feature of the game. That he says "my precious."
If you look at it. Look at the DLC.
That's insane. That's
on WB. Yeah, that's a WB move. That's why I'm not excited for any of these Mortal Kombat announcements or anything. Like I don't trust WB as a publisher as far as I can shit.
And this is like the Voldemort of gaming, but EA.
Oh no. Oh no.
What they did, that I don't know why, but anytime their people are basically like, hey, give us more money, I think of Dead Space 3.
Yeah, that thing that we both bought, yeah.
And it's like if you're going to change core mechanics of the game and give people something that they're not used to, something that's different from like what they expect out of a Dead Space game, because like the economies of Dead Spaces 1 and 2 were very good. I think they were.
Right.
Because excuse me.
Good.
But with like the store and the different weapons and how you have to balance what ammo types that you need for which gun that you have. They completely ruin that with the concept of Dead Space 3. And, like, you just have ammo clip. Mm-hmm. Like, that, okay, I found an ammo clip, and it goes to every one of my guns. But what I did think was cool was you can craft games out of, like, scrap, or you can craft guns out of scrap parts.
Mm-hmm. You got a little Roomba, and it finds parts for you.
Which is interesting, but the insulting part is, like, if you want the good parts to the good guns, give us money.
Yeah, and that's what, like, this example was what I was thinking of when I said in the middle of the PS3 360 lifespan is when that started to happen, where they're like, like GameStop was taking it wasn't even that GameStop, which is not a good company, I'm not defending GameStop, was taking they weren't eating anybody's lunch. The copies were already sold, but they were being resold, and they saw an opportunity. These publishers saw an opportunity to withhold features that are sometimes arbitrarily added, very last minute, like co-op, or maybe not co-op last minute, but I don't know, just online functionality that was arbitrarily shoehorned into that, and it was sold back to you for $10. So what I guess that's a different kind of fuck you, where when GameStop's selling a used copy of something for $55, $5 off their 60, and then you have to pay another $10, you're going to buy the new copy. So those publishers got it. So EA got every bit of that, and that like games suck.
I really didn't appreciate that. Like, what the insulting part was, like, give us money for literal garbage. Like, the parts in the game were garbage.
Narratively, like, they act honest to goodness garbage.
So that's... But the one thing that made me so angry with Dead Space 2, and, like, this is echoing what you just said, looking back on it, the multiplayer wasn't that good. I ended up watching videos on it. Like, I never actually played the Dead Space 2
I tested that multiplayer.
But I bought a used copy of Dead Space 2, and I couldn't play multiplayer because I didn't have an online license.
Right.
And I had to, like, buy a separate product. It's like there's multiple products that add to the experience. There's the physical copy of the game, and then there's the online multiplayer license. And it's like, I don't have the license because I bought the game used.
Right.
And that is absurd.
It's unacceptable, punishing the consumer. And I really do like, not that again, like, there's always so many caveats that I have when we're talking about all this. Not that I have a lot of faith in our government in protecting us, but like, there needs to be like some sort of interventions on stuff like that. And this example is silly, right? Like, video games is silly. It's a luxury, but I've often used video game, like, if somebody's like super angry about their video games, I can like pivot that to like other real world examples, like the scarcity of consoles like 3 years ago, that people were agitated about not being able to like find a PS5 or whatever.
Yep.
And I can be like, okay, yeah, like that does suck, and you are starting to understand what is or is not happening to create a situation like this, that you can't get your PlayStation. Awesome, you understand. Now apply that to things that matter in life. Apply that to your medications, or get in a house, you know, and be angry at that.
That's kind of why I call games the canary in the coal mine. It's just like they scream the absolute loudest. But it's like there's always things that follow, and it's not just software. Like, it's corporate greed, corporate malice, and it goes back to the problem is there's too many people who are comfortable, and it's like companies can do this because they know they're going to get away with it. Because, like, the audience is going to, bleat and scream for a short time, and then they forget. And then
a lot of that too, even if they don't forget, there's just so many consolidations that, like, like, if you're seeking that kind of entertainment, you don't really have a choice. Like, if your friend group's game of choice is a Blizzard game or whatever, or Call of Duty, like, there's a lot that like those games live and die by their player population. So like the big one is like Call of Duty. I've never played a Call of Duty, but it's just holding it ransom. So even if you are trying to avoid giving these entities your money, a lot of the time it's unavoidable unless you just decide not to. You just decide to walk away.
Yeah, it's like if there is no. Okay, I don't want to say the Call of Duty stories are like, they have like absolutely no substance, but they are repetitive. They follow like a formula. It's just like guys with guns in a war, and somebody gets lost, or they have to kill somebody, or they have to find some target, and maybe there's some repeat characters like that happened with Call of Duties 1, 2, and 3, but Modern Warfare 1, 2, and 3. But and like, even like Modern Warfare 2 came out, and they changed some stuff, and the best thing that came out of that was the memes. I love the ghost memes, like when he's in the car and he's got the skull mask on, and he just like, it's like one example, like when he's like looking at the driver of the car, and it's like when you and your girlfriend pile in your friend's car, and her phone automatically connects to it. Let me see if I can find some of these. They're absolutely hilarious. But where the experience, why people buy it, is the competitive multiplayer. If everybody just stopped playing, Activision would flip their lid.
Yeah. And it's a difficult thing, it's like swimming upstream. Like, how are you going to get, tens of millions of people to stop doing something, especially if it's their routine? Like, a lot of the, that's the pernicious thing, where we have fondness of games, and for a time they were almost exclusively marketed as towards children and seen as children things. So there's like a bundling of memories, like really impactful memories with these things.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that people that work a terrible job and want to go home, decompress, and talk to their cousin that lives the next state over that they don't get to see every year or whatever. So it's like, and these developers, or sorry, these publishers know that.
So, oh, but really quick.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see if I can like pull this up. I'm trying to find a good one. Uh,
I'm covertly
Oh.
playing the first Portal, by the way.
oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah.
I hear the clicking of the keyboard in the
Okay.
background.
It's an alien. It's a gray alien. It's not me playing Portal.
Okay. Hang on, let me share my screen here. I've never done one of these things before, so it's my first time. Go easy, it's my first time.
Nice.
Uh,
I've
so-
brushed my teeth. Don't worry.
This one right here. Your homie is taking you to your girl, but he ain't asking for directions. It's just like with the skull. I love it. I love it when it's like the best thing that comes out of like something is the memes. And a classic is the most memeable game I've ever played in my life is Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance.
Oh, that's a great one. I just recently replayed that one as well.
That one slapped.
Yeah.
And it was, you could play it on anything. I think you could even play it on Xbox. It was on PC.
Mm-hmm.
I thought
Good old Platinum Games.
it was really short. Like the game was short, but it plays kind of like an arcade game almost.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah, that's the stamp of Platinum. That's what they're known for. Just like super technical build combos, arcade style.
and like the music absolutely slaps. The boss fights, I thought it was fantastic.
It's an excellent game.
And it was like it seemed like it made a resurgence in the last couple years, and it's like everybody's just been memeing the shit out of it.
I think a lot of that too is cultural, where one, the memes, yes, but there's the quote where it was written by a Japanese man, so English isn't his first language.
Mhm.
He's also a baby boom, well, by the standards of America, but a baby boomer. He was born, in the 60s.
Yeah.
So when he was writing, he was like talking about memetics and how like information is shared culturally or whatever. So like I think I know the one. The senator at the end is like, "Forget about the memes." Like, yeah, that one. And I think people saw that in isolation and chocolate, yeah, because it is funny in current era. And then they, it's this silly cornball game, fully tongue in cheek, and then you get to like the final act of it, and you stumble into profundity about like perpetual war and like the cynicism of American politics and like this immensely like complicated story. And I think what started with people younger than us being like, oh, look at that game that came out 11 years ago and laughing at it, realize as recently 20-year-olds, it's like, oh, this is kind of relevant.
That game is a work of art. Like, it's one of those games that like it kind of has a serious story, but at the same time doesn't take itself too seriously.
Not at all.
But then there's those subtle little nuanced arguments that's like, hey, this is like kind of like Idiocracy, where it's like you're watching things unfold and you're like, shit, this is a work of fiction, but I see some parallels with how things are going on in like modern society. Mm-hmm. And it is a very like nuanced commentary. But
yeah, it's excellent. And like you're a cool androgynous Cyberman, so that's pretty cool.
And like one of the things that like I've been trying to do with my project is like just like all the stuff that we've been talking about. It's just like if I could put it into a bottle and just like allow someone to experience that like they were opening it when they launched the game. Like back in the day, it's like things had like good stories. They were games that worked, and like even if they didn't have a good story, they worked. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
And like maybe they would have some glitches, but they were like endearing. You know, like like I was playing Sonic Adventure on the Dreamcast and I glitched through a wall and have to restart the level or something. But it's like overall it doesn't impact the how I experience the game. There may be moments of frustration, but and also people put a lot of passion into things. People still put passion into things. It's not for a lack of passion. It's for a lack of... It's a lot more than just leadership, but it's like you can tell when something is made to be played versus made to be sold.
Right.
So just like one last maybe like parting word. Let's say you have somebody who, because like, I have no idea what it is that I'm doing. Like I write software for a living, but I'm like an average software developer. It's not like I know everything there is to know about game development, but my secret is that I'm stubborn. Like it's not that I'm an expert, but I'm not going to give up. Mm-hmm. And I just like figure out what problems to solve and I solve them and I keep doing that until I have something worth showing off. So let's say if you had to give advice for somebody who wants to do something, whether it's like make a game, write a story, or and they're like, I don't have all the answers yet. Like what? And they're afraid to start because they don't know where to start and they don't have all the answers. Like what advice would you give them?
I want people to just do it and make some real bad trash. But the caveat is, I see a lot of people that have a lot of ideas, daydream at work and, jot them down in their notes in their phone and, work on it for years. My advice would be to make trash, but not trash out of that thing that is precious to you and that you care for. So to get your mistakes on something that is incredibly low stakes. Again, I'm not in game dev, but I create for a living. So just make some trash and be okay with it being trash, and think of it like don't think of art as one piece, right? So like if you make a game or paint a picture, don't think of the art as that one lone piece by the end of it. Think of it intrinsically. Think of it as just the art is doing that over the course of time until you die, right? Not to be dire, but like just the iteration and getting better. Think of you as the art to do it, and then also try to like don't be so eager to throw things in the trash. Let them sit on the shelf for a little bit and then come back to them. It could be 5-10 years, and then you might be far enough removed from it. You might be kinder to yourself, and then maybe apply those changes to the next project or whatever. Don't be afraid of walking away from something. But don't be afraid of like leaving something. I know there's a sunk cost fallacy from that. Like, oh, I put 30 hours into this. It's like, well, just walk away. Just start on a new one.
Like it'll still be there when you come back to it.
Yeah, or you can just look at it, like a sketch. I mean, you'll have the memories of working on it and where you were at and what was on the news, what thing was playing in the background or whatever. So like I said, if you're removed far enough in time from it, you can look at it like a school photo and remember where you were and what you were thinking. And sometimes that's painful, but then you might find a pride in yourself and it's like, well, I don't believe that thing anymore, or I don't have this direction anymore, but look at me, look at how my hair was cut, look at how I was dressed, like, yeah.
Yeah, I totally feel that having. I definitely had boy band hair in high school.
I
With
look
the-
like I look like a Taliban blew up the Hot Topic.
Oh no. uh, yeah, it's definitely a good idea to have a frame of reference to see how far that you've come.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great word. And on that, I think that's a really good note to end our discussion for tonight. We can still hang out in the lobby, but
Oh hell yeah! Let's
yeah.
hang out in the lobby. Let's just. I'm at the final. I'm at the final boss of Portal. I put down the controller to to get the final word in, but I'm at the final boss. I'm going to see if I can get this cake.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. My friend are going to hang out a little bit longer, but thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Now we can turn on our fans.